All right, guys, happy Wednesday. We are working on graphing using graphing to solve systems of equations. If you have not watched the videos yesterday, it would be wise to watch those because that is where you're going to get all of your instruction for this. Otherwise, you're just kind of blindly going into this work and just kind of guessing. So, another thing, yesterday you got all of your tests back from Monday when you took it. I did send an email out about corrections. Make sure you check your email. It says like graded, whatever the test was called. So basically, if you need to do corrections, it is open and optional for everyone to do corrections, and they are due Friday. If you need any help with those, make sure that you are contacting me, and I will be happy to help. All right, moving on into this study island topic that you're working on today. So it's solve systems of equations graphically, which is what you learned yesterday or started to learn yesterday. So again, you're going to have a system of equations, and that's just two or more equations, okay? That's all that's saying, two equations. So it's telling you that these two equations are graphed on the graph below. Then it's asking what values for x and y satisfy both equations simultaneously. That just means at the same time. So what x and y values do they have in common is basically what they're saying. So I need to be comfortable graphing these, so I'll go through that first. So they're already graphed for you. So obviously if I'm doing study island, I don't necessarily have to do this every time, but you need to make sure that you're comfortable graphing because you will have to know how to do that. So first equation, I have a positive 2 as my y-intercept. Remember, it's y equals mx plus b, where this is your y-intercept, and this is your slope. Okay, so I'm at a positive 2 on my y-axis, coming from the origin. And then my slope is positive 2/3. So 2 over 3, that's rise over run. Okay, so I'm going up 2 to the right 3. That's my next point. I could do the exact opposite. So coming from that point here, I can go down 2 and to the left 3 and see how it's making that blue line. Okay, the next one, if I use a different color, my y-intercept, I always start there, is at -5. So that's my starting point. So on my y-axis, I'm at -5. And my slope here is 3 over 1. And I know that's rise over run. So if it's a whole number, always put it over 1. You want to have a rise and a run to deal with. So both positive, so I'm going up 3 to the right 1. That's my next point. Up 3 to the right 1. Remember, the more points you have, the better. Up 3 to the right 1. Okay, you'll notice that they're crossing right here, which you could probably tell that beforehand, but make sure you're comfortable graphing. At that point, I need to make sure that I'm writing an ordered pair. Okay, so I know what the x and the y is. All right, I know that your options are kind of just listing different x and y values, but typically you're going to be writing your final solution as an ordered pair. So that ordered pair on my x-axis is 3, and on my y-axis it went up 4. So 3, 4 should be the final solution for this one. Okay, so that looks like it is B. All right, the next one. Let's skip that one for now. Let's go here. Okay, it says 4 students are participating in a school fundraiser selling candy. Each student's total sales in dollars P can be determined with the following equations, where T represents the number of hours they sold candy. Okay, so P is the number of dollars, right? Okay, so that's talking about money here. And T stands for the number of hours, okay, like time, that they sold candy. So it says, okay, it gives us all these people and what equation, matches up with them. So it says plot the point on the graph that represents when Tony and Karen will earn the same amount in candy. Okay, plot the point on the graph. So it's only wanting a point. It's not wanting anything else besides a point. That represents when Tony and Karen will earn the same amount in candy sales. Okay, if they're earning the same amount, that's when those two lines are crossing. So we need to figure out where Tony is and where Karen is, okay, and see where they cross on the graph. Okay, so if I'm going down here, Tony's equation is P equals 1250T, and that was Tony. I'm just writing these down so I can scroll. And Karen, so I don't really care about these other people, right? I don't care about Alicia and Bobby. So Karen is, gotta love those Karens, right? 4T plus 100. Okay, so that was good old Karen. All right. All right, so when I'm looking at this, and I look at Tony, well, he doesn't have that plus b, so it's like a plus 0. So his y-intercept is going to be starting at the origin. Okay, and there's only one line that's doing that, so Tony must be this blue line. And his slope is like 1250 over 1, or I can think of that, so like 1250, so 12.5 over 1, is the same thing. I can just multiply each of these by 2 as the same thing as, not 15, 25 over 2. Okay, so that's going up 25 over 2, which makes sense. Okay, so now I know that blue is Tony. And now I'm looking for Karen, and her y-intercept is this positive 100. Okay, so hers is this red line because there's nobody else that starts at 100. And just to check her slope, it goes up 25 to the right 4. So I'm going up 25 to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, makes sense. So I need to figure out where this red line and this blue line are going to cross. And it looks like they're crossing right here. So at that point, that is going to be where they're going to have the same amount in candy sales. Okay, so keep in mind, P is the amount of dollars. So my y-axis is talking about dollars, and my x-axis is talking about time, right, in hours. So it looks like, if I were to kind of look at this down here, at 14 hours, they both make, what is that, right in between there? Like what, 187.5, because each one's going by 1250. Okay, so let's go back to the question. It's asking me to plot the point on the graph. Okay, so all I need to do is plot this point where that red and the blue ended up crossing. Which it looks like my drawing kind of messed things up. But where red and blue cross, I might have lied. It looks like it's really at, now that I don't have my scribbles all over, it looks like it's at 16 hours and 200. That makes it a little bit easier, huh? Okay, so I'm going to select that point tool, and, well, it's not going to let me because I'm on the printable sheets. I'd select the point tool and then mark that dot right where they cross. All right, next one. All right, so looking at this one, it says use the graph below to estimate. Ooh, that's a big word, or a big hint. Estimate the solution to the systems of equations shown. Okay, I know it's where they cross. That's what the solution is. However, looking at all my options down here, it looks like all of them have some fractions in it. So I just have to figure out what's the most reasonable solution. Okay, so I know that they're crossing right here. So when I'm looking at where they're crossing, and I'm trying to figure out what's going to be the most reasonable. So on my x-axis, I'm going back, and it looks like, I know that this line in between here would be -5. So it looks like I'm going back -5, and it looks like it's almost between -5 and -6. Okay, so first of all, when I look at my x values, well, I know it can't be positive because I'm in the negatives right now. So that won't make sense, so A can be eliminated. Okay, well, I'm at -5.5. Okay, that seems pretty reasonable because that's between -5 and -6. So I'm going to keep B in the running. Well, I know it can't be positive, so C is out. And here, this is saying -3 and 1/2, which I'm not between -3 and -4 right now, so that doesn't make sense. So let's check real quick the y and make sure it makes sense. So going on the y, well, I know that this line here is 3. So if I'm looking across here, it's just a little bit above that, but it's not quite halfway. So that makes sense for that to be 3 1/3. So B would be my option here. All right, last one for today. So this one tells us that Ray's department store sells dress shirts. for $14.99. The cost to produce one dress shirt. Okay, so this is the cost to produce one shirt is $9.99 plus a one-time fee of $90. Okay, so the first one they're selling, second one it's the cost to make it. So it says at what point, at what point? It's just asking you for a point. Would the revenue, okay, so that's the money that they're making, so like they're selling and bringing in money, to be equal to the cost of producing them. Okay, so I want revenue to be equal to the cost. So that's saying this equation to be equal to this equation. And that's where they're going to cross, right? So it says place the solution point of the system. So just the solution point, that's important. Okay, we're not drawing lines, we're just putting a point there. On the graph below, round all values to the nearest whole number. Okay, so I already did this. I took both of those equations and I just wrote them down here so I can scroll. And I went ahead and rounded to the nearest to the nearest whole. Okay, so that's going to give me 10x plus 90 for this one and then 15x here. All right, so with those two equations in mind, I'm going to graph them to see where that point is, and then I can actually use that point tool on Study Island to put that point there. So graphing this first one, I'm going to stick with this pink color. I have a positive 90 on my y-intercept. That's where I start. So with that, I have a slope of 10 over 1. Okay, these aren't going by tens, right? This is not 100 because this would have to be 110. So that won't work. Okay, so while I'm thinking about this, I'm going to think about something that's reasonable to use instead of tens. So I can think of anything that's equivalent to 10 over 1 and see what's going to work from there. So 10 over 1 is the same as 20 over 2, right, if I multiply it by 2. Or I could say 10 over 1, but these still aren't going by 20s, are they? Because this would be 110 and then this would have to be 130, so that doesn't make sense. And then I could say that this is, we'll go up by 3. 30 over 3, right? Multiply each by 3. So, okay, this is going up by 30, right? 90 to 120 is 30. And then I can go by 3s on my x-axis down here, okay? So when I'm looking at this, going from that starting point of 90, I'm going to go up 30 and to the right 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to keep doing that across the whole thing. So I have as many points as possible. Remember, that's your best bet. So up by 30 over 3. Up by 30, which is really just 2 spots on my grid, and then to the right 3. Up by 30 over 3. Up by 30 over 3. Up by 30 over 3. Okay, so I can connect those as best I can and make that line. And then my next equation, I'm going to go this color. And I don't have that plus b out here, so I can assume that that's 0, right? If there's nothing there, I assume that's 0. So that means this one's starting at the origin. And this time, it's 15 over 1. Okay, well, if I look at this, 15, well, this would make 30. So that means that each one of these grids is 15. So that helps me. I don't have to really change it like I did the other one. All right, so 15 over 1, going up 15 to the right one. So I'm basically just going up 15 to the right one every time. Takes a little bit to do all these. They're getting closer. Ooh, they're not touching yet. Not quite yet. Okay, now it looks like they met exactly on this top point. Okay, so if I were to connect those, they are intersecting right here. So that is where I would plot my point, right on the grid. Okay, and remember, it's only asking for the point. I don't need these lines. That was just to help me figure out where that point was going to go. All right, give Study Island a try. If you complete the Study Island goal and you want to turn it in early, that's totally fine. But remember, it's not due this week, it's due next week. If you need any help at all, I will set up a Google Meet with you individually, and we can talk about whatever you need help with, okay? Make sure that you are asking any questions that you might have, because I know that this stuff is kind of hard to do remotely, all right? Have a good day. Let me know if you need anything.